Okay, so here's the patient. It's an 89 928 automatic car. Okay, first things first, I have the car as level as I can get it as far as the concrete slab's concerned. Disconnected battery. Okay, next thing, I'm going to remove the air tube and air box. Next, there'll be 4 10mm nuts that hold the base of the air box down. Those need to be removed. After the box is out, you want to take some kind of plastic or something and cover up the mass airflow sensor. And now we're going to remove the flywheel sensor with a 5mm Allen wrench. Now you'll want to disconnect the Bowden cable. There's a clip here, and of course pop it loose from the ball here. Next, I went ahead, and before I jacked the car up, I went ahead and removed the 2 19mm upper bell housing bolts that hold the torque tube bell housing to the back of the motor. They're very difficult to get to. You might want to look at Dwayne's right up here. It's a tight fit. I have fairly small hands and still very difficult to get in there. On the passenger side, you might want to remove the heater hose and move that connection out of the way to be able to get your hand or a wrench down in there. In my case, it takes 2 fairly large, long 19mm wrenches. One, of course, to get on the bolt, and the other to use as a lever to be able to loosen it or later on tighten it. While you're here, go ahead and pull the vacuum line off that operates or runs to the transmission. Okay, I jumped forward a little bit. I went ahead and raised the car off the ground. Since we've loosened the rear wheel lug nuts, they'll be easy to get off now. So let's check the height. Okay, I've checked the height. It's 22 inches at the rear jack stand, so I believe that's going to be high enough. Okay, got the rear wheels off. Okay, the next thing is to take the 6 17mm nuts off the shock tower inside. Nuts will come off, and then there's a cover plate. Just get the nuts off and move the cover plate off. Remove this corner cover that's in the spare tire well, and this is a 10mm nut that may or may not be tight enough for a wrench, but just move it, remove it, pull the cover loose. Then you'll have your connections that run through. Let's see if I can show you this. Run through this part of the body and down into the transmission. This is all of your electrical controls for the transmission. Here we'll need to take this small box off the wall and pull these connections loose, and then stuff all of the wires through this hole. Now we're back around working on removing the brakes from the hubs or the discs. There's one electrical fitting that needs to be pulled loose from here. Let's see if I can get that. There we go. This connector, it pulls straight out. Be careful because these are old brakes and old connectors. They could be very brittle, and this is like a nylon fitting with a rubber weather tight seal, hopefully. So pull that loose, and then there are 2 19mm bolts on the back side of the caliper that hold this to the housing, and we'll need to remove those and then hang the brake calipers with a coat hanger or something off. And in my case, there's a metal line up here at the top. I can feed a wire through and hang the caliper. On the passenger side, I believe there's a hole in the body that you can run a coat hanger through and hang the caliper from that side. Okay, now we're back inside the car, passenger floorboard where the fuse panel is. We need to remove the 2, in my case, 2 10mm nuts here. I've seen these vary, so whatever it is on your car, we need to get this wood base off to get to another cable. Okay, we got the wood base off. Now we need to disconnect the O2 sensor that's attached to the exhaust. We're going to be dropping it next, and it comes through the well here there's a hole and the cable comes through, and you just simply pull this connection loose and feed it through when the time comes. Okay, our next step is going to be removing the entire exhaust system. Okay, I have the exhaust out. I also went ahead and removed all the heat shields. They're held in place with either 8mm sheet metal screws or Phillips head. There's two cross members in the torque tube well that need to be removed, and they're at the base of the one there that's kind of a horseshoe, and then there's a smaller one right in front of the transmission. Those two need to be removed now. Okay, I got the cross braces out. The longer one goes towards the front, right behind the front bell housing, and the smaller one is right in front of the torque converter. And those are held in with 13mm bolts, 4 per. And while I was under there, I went ahead and removed the bottom bell housing cover, held in with 6 13mm bolts. And this is the bell housing at the motor flywheel up front. Okay, the next thing is to remove the drive rod connection to the flex plate at the motor end. In my case, I have the Constantine clamp, but the standard clamp is similar. You'll need to take the bolts loose, both at the flex plate and the pinch roller, and then slide it back onto the rod out of the way so that this can separate from the motor. The bolts attaching the clamp to the flex plate are 15mm, and I believe it's an 8mm Allen head that has the pinch bolt on the standard clamp. Okay, now we're at the rear of the torque tube where it bolts into the transmission. I've removed the plug at the bottom of the tube, and this will expose the rear drive rod pinch clamp. Rotate it. Since we've disconnected the main clamp to the flex plate, you can actually just simply rotate this rod around. It should be very simple. You won't have to worry with rotating the engine, and just spin it around to where you can get your 8mm Allen wrench up in there and just totally remove that bolt. Okay, the next thing I did was starting to drain the transmission fluid, the driver's side hose, and it has a fitting right close to the end of the torque tube. They're opposing, I think it was a 19 and a 17mm wrench. To get that loose, we'll go and return this fitting here. Will come completely out with a 19mm, and that will drain as well. And then we will drain the pan, rotate the torque converter itself, and drain it. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Okay, if you're planning on taking the transmission out, for example, if you're going to rebuild it, or if you're just simply wanting the transmission separated from the axle, you're going to have to do that now, really. I normally will drop the transmission along with the axle and all of it in one unit, but if you do that, you just about cannot get these axles loose from the transmission. You really need the help of the emergency brake to do that. So if your plans are to take the transmission off the axle, you need to go ahead and set your emergency brake, and with the 8mm Allen wrench, loosen and remove all of these 6 bolts, 6 per axle, and then you can just let them rest like so. Now you'll want to remove the cover over the emergency brake cable system. It's right behind your emergency brake lever on your driver's side. It's a cover that is connected to the body here, here, and over here. Take these screws out, remove the spring, and then loosen this connection so that it will be totally loose. The cable is going to want to go back through its housing. After the cable is loose from the bracket, you want to go on and take this nut off because you might end up snagging it as you pull the cable through the housing.